Friends, it's final. It's official. Whether you loved him or you didn't love him, Joe Mauer is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's headed to Cooperstown later this summer, and you can't deny it. But that's what we're going to talk about with Dave Brown today. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And across the screen from me is esteemed BBWAA voter and Joe Mauer enthusiast, Mr. Dave Brown. How are we?
That's going to be on my business card now. I'm going to have new ones made, and Joe Mauer enthusiast is going to have the biggest font.
Well, so it can be on your business cards. You can put it on my headstone because I also am a Joe Mauer enthusiast.
Don't die.
Well, true. Also, I want to be cremated, so we're probably not going to do a headstone. But neither here nor there.
Bury the ashes. Never mind.
Yeah, Locked On mortality. But with that said, yeah, Joe Mauer, last player I rooted for and then covered, between turning from a fan to, an actual reporter, and just very meaningful. I didn't like tear up or anything, but I had a really nice feeling that when the guy took like 10 minutes to announce it, because it felt like it was going to be a cliffhanger on MLB Network. But yeah, Joe Mauer is a Hall of Famer. Before we get to that, though, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. We'd love to hear from you. If you're watching this as a live YouTube premiere, please feel free to give us a shout in the chat. Give us a shout in the comments underneath if you're watching after the fact. Thumbs up, all that good stuff. Shout out to FTL Nova Kid. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place any $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Dave Brown, let's you said Joe Mauer made it, but you said by how many votes again?
He made it by 4 votes. It was he was tracking at 83 point something 1% at not Mr. Tibbs Hall of Fame tracker right up until the end, and then they show us how many votes he actually got, and he made it by 4 votes. It was 76%. So he dropped 7%, which is, within the realm of things that have happened before. So it isn't that shocking, but it was closer than we thought. There were the guy, those people out there who aren't into Joe Mauer were part of the ballots that had not been revealed yet, a significant part. So, but he's in. It doesn't matter if you're in by 0.5% or you get every single person to vote for you. Joe Mauer's in the Hall of Fame, and you can't take that away from him.
Do you feel like the Electoral College of Baseball?
Personally?
Well, not you by yourself, but
like a part of it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good. That strikes me. Rings true. I don't really like the Electoral College, but because I think we should all vote for the president, and that's it.
Right.
Although I understand why we have it. Yeah, I guess so. It's a big responsibility, and 3 guys got in. Adrian Beltre also, and Joe and Todd Helton actually got more votes than Mauer did in the end. It was
wild.
It is. We're kind of wondering, well, maybe Helton might not make it because he was tracking a little lower than Mauer. But I feel good that the 3 guys got in, and I voted for him. And Billy Wagner, sort of the converse of Mauer, missed by 5 votes, just 5 votes. So he's got another year on the ballot, thankfully, and he'll have an opportunity to go over. And indications are based on history that Wagner will next year. But this is Joe Mauer's time.
So needing 75%, you said he was tracking over 83. So that's an 8% error bar, so to speak. That's kind of a big error bar or margin of whatever.
Yeah.
You consider
it's usually like 4. Usually in recent history, 4 to 5% is like you want to go into the announcement at 80, basically 80%, maybe high 79s, and then you have a good chance. And Maurer had cleared that, so so it was a little like whoa
Mhm.
when the total was 76, but that's more for nerds to worry about, I think. Because Maurer, nobody, I don't know about nobody, but few people, if you had said a year ago that Maurer was going to get 76% of the vote, people would be like, really? Wow. It just seemed like he was a guy that, because of a shortened career and all the other negative things that some people think about Joe Mauer, that it might take a year for this to happen, but that's not how it worked out, thankfully.
No, no, incredible and good for Joe. Good to see him talking to a lot of his colleagues, both when he played, but also a couple of different St. Paul luminaries in Jack Morris and Paul Molitor, both of whom are in the Hall of Fame, giving him a shout and a kind of welcome to the Hall. And so that error bar, like to me, that when you think of like representative samples, to get a feel for like political polling of an entire country, you only need a few thousand people or whatever. Like it's a very small number. So to me, it's just striking that he must have only appeared on something like what, 50 something, 60% of unsubmitted public ballots.
Yeah, I'm not ready to answer that question yet. I don't think I didn't. I did mean to look that up, but so like exactly what the number is. But remember, this is 380, 90 people voting. So
Yeah.
Actually the swings can be pretty quick. I mean, when you think about it, if Maurer got 76% of the vote, if he got 4 fewer votes, he doesn't get in. It's only 4 votes that swing it that much. So I think it's a smaller sample size, and that has something to do with
So then the representative sample thing actually doesn't work in that case. So
right. All right. Well,
anyway,
we'll edit that out, or we'll just whatever.
We'll leave it in there. If you can have the errors at the end of the show when Kornheiser and Wilbon are going, so can you. And
as the show evolves, we'll add that.
Right. I hope people are seeing and appreciating the marquee under the screen too. I'm taking advantage of technology that I'm learning slowly but surely as we enter year 2 of.
Well, that's from a video game commercial for people that don't remember history.
Yeah,
Joe Mauer was the cover boy for MLB The Show. Was that
twice?
So
only one to ever do it twice.
And the executive or whoever that was kind of his nemesis, and he would say, well played, Mauer.
Did you ever see the highlight of Dick Bramer saying it?
I probably did, but it's not coming to me off the top of my head. What was that like?
So it must have been. I mean, it was at Target Field. I think it might have been 2010, but it was one of the early years of Target Field. And there was a foul pop behind the screen to where the Champions Club is. And he reaches, I don't want to say reaches around because that just sounds so bad, but he reaches around the screen, catches
for a team show all of a sudden.
Yeah, give it the old, so anyhow, makes the catch, and then Dick Bramer says something like, he didn't catch that, did he? Oh, well played, Mauer. And it just, in his distinctive tone, it works. It really works. If you are listening or watching and you haven't seen it, you can find it easily on YouTube. Any Joe Mauer highlight video is going to have that. They're going to have him, Kevin Correa pitching at Nationals Park, skips one to the backstop. Mauer catches it without
looking. Right behind the back, yes.
And then there's one other one with Brett Gardner. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
That one, I'm not sure.
Okay, so this is one of the greatest plays you will ever see a catcher make. And so Brett Gardner is on second base. He's representing the winning run, and they're at Yankee Stadium. And I don't know, it's a swinging bunt. I don't remember who was hitting. And it rolls up the first baseline. Mauer gets it and does not have a play at first, but alertly looks back. Brett Gardner at this time, very, very, very fast. Like he was fast at the end. He was incredibly fast. Joe turns, lays out, and slaps the tag on him and gets him by, bang, bang at the plate. Incredible play. I think what that tells me about Mauer that I can recall, he never seemed to be rattled or out of position.
Yeah. I had an opportunity tonight to listen in or watch and listen on the call with the media in the Zoom room with Mauer, and he talked a little bit about why he liked to be a catcher,
Yeah.
and it was a position where he could impact the game more than other places. He liked to have his hand on the ball. He liked to, he was a shooting guard in basketball. He was a quarterback in football in high school. And, he liked being in the game and controlling the game, or just, at least having lots of agency in what the outcome was. So, that shows, that play you're talking about shows the effort and the studiousness and all the time that he put into making himself a better player. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to demonstrate in one play what makes a Hall of Famer, but that's a really good example of Joe Mauer being really alert. And it's an extreme example, but as you said, it was kind of the norm for him, and that's just how he played.
Let's take a quick second. We'll talk about eBay Motors when we come back. More Joe Mauer memories as we congratulate Joe Mauer making the Hall of Fame, becoming the is it the third first ballot catcher of all time? So just an
only
honor.
3 in history. Amazing.
Yeah. So
Sonny Bench and Pudge Rodriguez.
Yeah, we'll come back and talk about that. But first, a word from eBay Motors. So our friends over at eBay Motors want you to know that passion, drive, and patience are the name of the game and what brings home the winning trophy. And it keeps your car, your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts, that's million for your number one ride, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Easy for me to say. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, we're back here ready to bring you home all the way to the end of the program. And we're talking Joe Mauer. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer, first ballot catcher Hall of Famer since Pudge Rodriguez, only third of all time. Do you think voters got a little too hung up on the idea of him being a first ballot or not first ballot Hall of Famer? Again, not wanting you to eat your own in terms of your BBWA colleagues, but maybe just the situation at large.
I'll eat those people alive. That's fine. No, I think possibly because the BBWA does have a history of voters individuals taking it upon themselves to not vote for an obvious Hall of Famer on the first ballot because someone from history didn't get in on the first ballot for whatever
Would you
reason.
consider that gatekeeping? Is that a weird kind of gatekeeping or not?
Yeah, that's like dictionary definition. I mean, and it is it is the BBWA's, maybe not the gate, but they are the century, the century at the gate. I mean, they let the people in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they're not the only ones, but yeah, that is
keeping their own gate. Just
the fence belongs to the Hall of Fame. The gate belongs to the BBWA, I guess.
Like the guards at Buckingham Palace.
Yes, big furry heads. So to answer your question, people probably saw how well Mauer was doing in the early voting, and maybe before they voted, they're like, "I'm going to, harumph, put a stop to this." I'm sure there were lots of voters that did that, or maybe they didn't see, because we had to have the votes in almost a month ago, like 3 weeks at this point.
Yep.
Maybe they didn't see the results, but again, the more conservative voters who don't advertise their votes on Twitter or make the announcement, they want it all to be a secret until the end, whatever their reasoning. More conservative, less likely to vote for Mauer just because for lots of reasons, and he actually addressed some of that in the Zoom, talking about how he had a shorter career and he didn't, he caught for 10 years only. And so, as he put it, what did he say? He said, I'm glad the writers, I'm glad for the writers who did a little digging to not, to look past the last 5 years of my career. So I don't think that, this is Mauer talking, I don't think most players, if you look at the last 5 years of their career, it's not really going to be like peak performance. Yep. So he's like, well, for the first 10 years, I think Joe Mauer's pretty confident in what he brought to the table as a player. So, he's grateful for that. But some people, hold that against him for not being a catcher for longer. But he's, it's people are just going to have to deal with it now. He's in.
Well, nice of them to dig on him and not bury him in the same process. But I want to ask, what was your, so obviously, again, for people who know both of us, we have different perspectives. I've been in Minnesota for his entire career. You've seen it from a national and distant perspective. How will you remember Joe Mauer? I think if you remember it as, someone who grew up a White Sox fan, there'd be annoyance. Someone who grew up covering or living in Kansas City, it might be one thing. How will you remember him, and how has that maybe changed throughout his career?
My memory of him is pretty consistent. It's in not awe, but admiration for how good of an athlete he is. A guy who showed a passion for the game, but also an enjoyment for the game. Mauer's body language, he didn't say a lot. He didn't do a lot of in-depth interviews, but from how he played and how he looked when he played, he was a guy who was having fun out there. He was alert. He was a good leader on the field, all things that catchers need to be. He was an extraordinary hitter for a catcher. There have not been very many in history who hit as well as Mauer did. And, while that didn't necessarily add up to, Mike Piazza's home runs or, name your stat, just very impressed with how Mauer hit like, a third baseman might have, or somebody at a different position. But he was a catcher too, and a very good one for a number of years. So, the consistency and, the kind of the matinee idol presence out there, almost like, created in a lab, but that sounds like he is a, less than human or something like that. But just a humble guy, a friendly guy, a good player, a really good leader. I mean, lots of nice things come to mind when you think about Joe Mauer.
Well, you and I both, we agree that it's really hard to know the man behind the mask, technically, literally, with Joe Mauer being a catcher. But I can say with relatively strong conviction that everything you've ever heard about Joe Mauer being an A++ human is verifiably true. And it just, to me, it's so kind of sad to see so many fans that kind of turned on him at the end of the career of a guy who didn't really, he didn't choose to have a concussion in 2013. Matthew Trueblood of Baseball Prospectus went back and looked, and I think he found that Mauer had been hit by quite a few foul balls that day. Kind of the one that lit the fuse was off the bat of Ike Davis, which, ironically enough, his dad, Ron Davis, is one of the most reviled relief pitchers in Twins history. So the Ron Davis curse strikes again. But anyhow, he got 2 hits after that last foul tip. That kind of goes to show what Mauer was capable of. And then he admits later in his career that the concussions altered his vision. Well, he maintained, he's like a 105, 108, whatever OPS plus the rest of his career. I just don't see how you can say a sideways word about him unless you just are bitter, jealous, or some combination of the two.
Well, baseball is not like basketball. I mean, you look at a contemporary of Joe Mauer's, Buster Posey, contributed to 3 World Series winners. And, good for Buster Posey. The Giants don't win those World Series, without him.
Right.
True. But all the factors that go into making a baseball team, and the good fortune of having Bruce Bochy kind of controlling things as the manager, and
Mhm.
Brian Sabian making the right moves. Joe Mauer did not have all those things in Minnesota. He was a great player, but it's not like Michael Jordan on a basketball team where there are 5 people.
Right.
And you talk about controlling the game. There's only so much that one baseball player can do. The greatest player ever. Adrian Beltre. Actually, I can't think. Did Adrian Beltre win any World Series? Maybe he did with the Red Sox. I don't know, but it was. Todd Helton didn't win any World Series. There's
Well, he
lots of
made
guys
one, right?
What's that?
Oh, Helton made one, but that was, I think,
He made one, yeah.
07
So
and lost.
I don't. And people. It seems like the people who don't like Joe Mauer, and maybe we're giving them too much air. Didn't like how well he got a big contract, and the Twins didn't really win that much with him.
Right.
But that's not Mauer's fault. That's the
Well, it
fault
gets
of
worse.
like everybody
It gets
else. People take it out on the team's best players, and that's unfortunate that people that there are some people, loud people out there that don't like him. But not everybody's going to like you, so be it.
Well, there's a sect of fans that will point out that the Twins won playoff games in 02 and 03. Mauer debuts in 04. They lose all the playoff games until just recently. Joe Mauer never played in a playoff win because in 04, when they actually won at Yankee Stadium, he was hurt. And then the year he retires, the next year, Rocco Baldelli comes in. They win 100 games, Bomba Squad, all that stuff. And to me, it's such lazy analysis. Oh, they won because he left. No, they had a coming of age at the right time for a bunch of young players like Max Kepler and Jorge Polanco and whatnot. Everything should be viewed with nuance. And I just feel so annoyed that Joe's career can be reduced to a disappointment because he was a number 1 overall pick when, if you compare number 1 overall picks by WAR, he's got to be top 5, 6, maybe. I think A-Rod's ahead of him and a few others, but he did not have a disappointing career, no matter how you want to slice it.
Well, just another team, the White Sox, Frank Thomas, best player in team history. By the time the White Sox won the World Series in 2005, Frank Thomas had almost literally nothing to do with it. It was, he was injured at that time. He did come back and get himself over 500 home runs with the A's and the Blue Jays. But
hey, fun story there.
What's that?
The 500th homer was hit at the Metrodome.
Yeah.
The area I had season tickets, but I wasn't at that game because I had worked an overnight the night before. So there's a non-zero chance I could have caught Frank Thomas's 500th home run.
That is quite a brush with near brush with fame, or something, or souvenirs.
I did catch a Ty Wigginton home run once, though.
You should have him sign it.
I threw the ball back.
You threw the. This is. We're not going to have time to go over this, but
no, we'll tell another story. I got interviewed by Todd Callis, Harry Callis's son, who's
on TV.
On TV. No, he was the sideline reporter for the Rays back then, and I threw it back, and the girl next to me was a Rays fan, and she got really mad, and so we were on there. But anyway, derailing your point about something.
Yeah, I'll say. Well, anyway, Frank Thomas was gone when the White Sox won the World Series, so it's like. I know the Twins fans wanted Joe Mauer or the Twins to win one in that span, but it's not. It's just that's not how it happens. That's not how it goes. Sometimes, and just you're going to have to live with it. I did want to note, Brandon, you wanted to know. One thing that you were wondering was, did Joe Mauer miss catching, and what were his feelings about finishing his career?
You served as a proxy for me of sorts.
I did. I wanted to know. Well, what's one thing you want to know? So I got to ask him, and he said, I did miss catching. I loved having the ball, controlling it in my hands, impacting the game, like playing shooting guard in basketball or quarterback in football. He was famously recruited by Florida State to play down there.
Have you ever seen video of him throwing the football?
I think so. Years
ago. The zip on his throws, incredible. Sure. He was real. He was big time.
He's but I was also happy to be able to extend my career at first base. I always tell everybody there's nothing like standing in a batter's box facing a big league pitcher, the best in the world night after night. I definitely miss catching, though. catching is where my heart is. I felt that it gave us the best chance to win when I was behind the plate,
True.
but it was the right thing to do to switch positions when I did.
When he went back and caught for one pitch in the ninth inning of his last game, Matt Belisle pitching, just an incredible moment that I still get goosebumps thinking about now, 5.5 years later. I don't think there's a better way to go out outside of, like the World Series Game 7 home run that you practice in your backyard when you're 10 years old. But got to get a hustle double in his last at bat, got to catch that pitch. I think Yoan Moncada was hitting the agreed. Belisle would throw a ball and he would take it so Joe didn't have to risk anything. But just memories of that day of his girls coming up to him on the field and giving him big bear hugs. And then they say on the camera, "Mom, we found your true love." And so like, it added to the mystique of like Joe being not the All-American boy, but like the Minnesota version of that besides. And I just, as we come down the home stretch of this episode, I cannot say enough good things about him. Everyone I've ever talked to has said good things about him. And some of the funnier things were how he, Cole DeVries told me that they were in Detroit and there was some obscenely expensive car, like $250,000. And they were trying to convince Joe to buy it. And he'd signed his deal already. And he's like, "Oh no, that's far too much money. That's far too whatever." And Cole's like, "Joe, we could tip you upside down and shake your pockets and that much money would come out. And you think it's too much money." And then another one was, and then I'll let you start talking again. Pat Light, who is he kind of is like the real life Sam Malone. He owns a bar and he used to be a hard throwing wild relief pitcher. He came on my show a while back, a different show, and said that he was in town, might have been for like Twins Fest in the offseason, but he and Joe got paired up. They were playing games at like one of the arcade restaurants in Minneapolis. And even in games, Joe was just insanely gifted. Like you could probably put him on well, they did. They put him on skates in Justin Morneau's backyard and he's skating with Mark Parrish and all these former NHL guys. It's just the kind of guy who everything came naturally to. And yeah, it'd be easy to be jealous of, but I think Joe just made it so easy to be happy for him. Again, I know he had issues in his career as far as injuries, but nobody chooses that. Nobody chooses to be hurt.
No, nobody chooses to be hurt. He tried his best. Every once in a while, I'll see a tweet about, well, he never tried, or once he got his big contract, that was it. I mean, it was just, that's just a coincidence of him getting hurt.
Sounds like J.D. Drew, though. Those naturals, they look like they make it look easy.
I think Mauer is a good example of the phrase, no good deed ever goes unpunished. Because we talked about, we don't really know. We're not pretending to know these guys, but by all accounts, like you said, he's a good guy and he carried himself in the right way. And, I think that, that should be rewarded with, less, more than bitter feelings about not, how much money he was paid, what that cost the Twins, or the Twins not winning, because everyone else wasn't half as good as Mauer. I think people who don't need to realize what they had in him.
Yeah. Well, if they're tasting salty tears because Joe Mauer's in the Hall of Fame, then I guess that's just irony doing irony's thing. I don't want to end it on that note, though. Again, just over the moon, happy for Joe to make it. It was so surreal. His career expanded basically he debuted when I was 18 and his career ended. That's like my adulthood. Like it spanned my adulthood exactly to the point where he retired when I was 32. It was so surreal for that to come full circle with him catching and, getting to be at the press conference and ask him questions. Like, I cannot say enough about, if I never cover a game again in person, getting to cover Joe Mauer as a player after being a fan and all that I hear about him. What a treat. What an absolute treat.
It's a story that has a real live happy ending in a lot of different ways. It's, he had to switch positions because of the concussions. People asked him tonight in the Zoom, how's your body feeling? And he's like, well, I still feel it, like the effects of being a professional athlete in the joints and the knees and all that and elbows. Nobody asked him about, like, didn't press him on concussions or, vision issues or anything like that. But, he's able these days to, like he talked about what he did today, played wiffle ball in his backyard with his 5-year-old boy. Or maybe, I don't know if it was his backyard, if it's too cold, but he said it might have been downstairs in the basement.
Chip Mauer, by the way. Chip. Legendary name, Chip Mauer.
Absolutely. So, and you mentioned the girls, Joe is usually on, these days, he said, on pickup duty at school. So that contract, which he earned, allows him to have that kind of life now where he can play with his kids. And he's like, I can't wait to take them to Cooperstown and show them history of this great game. And it's just really a feel good story, 99% of it anyway. And it's right that Joe Mauer is in the Hall of Fame. It is the perfect ending to his career.
Yeah, and he marries a local girl. He's got kids who are young enough. He gets to spend time with them while they're still young.
Yeah,
he's 41. He's retired 41 with insane amounts of money in the bank. I mean, really, nobody has it better than Joe Mauer. And just
I think he knows that too. I think he said, I'm totally aware of the gravity of what this means and how blessed I am and all that. I don't know if he used that word, but I think he knows.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to get out of here before our allotted time, we got to start saying our goodbyes. Dave, thank you so much for not only serving as a proxy at the presser, but voting for Joe Mauer. We're delighted he's in, and we'll talk about it as much as we can.
Yeah. Well, let's get some more. Let's drain the blood from this turnip. We'll get as much out of it as we can.
All right. Good. Well, hey, this has been Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow night.